We're here with Robin Helfer, who's done a variety of sort of serial transformation projects in a whole diverse group of different businesses, ranging from baseball cards companies, cybersecurity, across all kinds of industries. Was this part of a plan, Robin, or is that sort of something that just happened?
Hi, so thank you for having me. I will tell you, it definitely was not a part of a plan. I started my career in public accounting, actually. I'm a CPA, but I started in consumer products. So I think you could say that that part was very deliberate in terms of focusing on the consumer products and services industry.
Mhm.
But many of my moves over the years have happened, and I know we'll talk about this a little later, but because of my network and knowing people in different environments where they thought that they could really use my skill set and they would bring me along to those environments. So I will say it not really deliberate at all, but I've been quite fortunate over the years.
It seems you have an incredible depth in your career, although you've kept mainly to operations and finance. So it seems to indicate, because you've been successful, that maybe deep industry knowledge is not the only thing that's important to success. It seems to me you kind of have to be really adaptable and understand how to get things done in a variety of different corporate cultures. How do you approach that? I mean, you come in, you've said serial transformation, you come in, you're making big changes, which can be a challenge.
Yes.
How do you figure out how to get things done in these ongoing new environments?
You need to come in to the company, meet the people, get an understanding of the business, the value drivers of the business, what makes the business tick, how does it run, and from there and from creating a network within the company, really learning what does the company do well today that does not need to be changed and where are their opportunity areas. And you mentioned, do you really have to know a lot about that particular industry? I think it helps, but I think that if you are a good business person, I take a certain approach, like a fact-finding approach, and then working through the power of the people and the team to really make things happen, but then coming up with what are the opportunities that are out there to make the changes that are necessary to improve the performance of the business.
I think if you can do that, people like being part of a sort of successful transition. And I think picking ways to improve the business and to improve what people contribute. I've found no matter what industry, you typically don't have people trying to do a bad.
Exactly. But sometimes it's, I think, where things have worked best for me and bringing about the best improvements and value for companies is the combination of bringing in someone like me who's new and also working with people who helped to make the company what it was the day that I walked in. So you really need a combination of newness and you need people who help to build the company from the ground up. And to your point, people need information. Information is power. Once they have information and other ideas, because I'm able to bring opportunity areas that I've seen be successful in other environments. So I will try to bring, whether it's a methodology or a cost savings opportunity, but you need to involve the people who are in the business to see there is no one size fits all for success. So you need to involve the right people in the company and who understand the ultimate consumer and to decide what is going to work in this environment and what will not work. And then also build on each other's ideas because these things don't just come from me. They really come from the people and the team. And I like to say it takes a village because it does, because some of my greatest successes have been through the power of the team.
I think it's a really important. I think you're right about information. A kind of fundamental characteristic of human behavior is that if people don't know what's going on, they assume it's screwed up. You know,
Yeah.
unless they think headquarters is involved and then they know it's screwed up. So I do think people like to be consulted and listened to, and they also contribute a lot. Sometimes just listening to people gets them on board. Sometimes
Yep,
listening to people gets ideas that you never would have thought of. So I think it,
absolutely. And people want you need the individuals in the organization to be a part of the solution. And if they are, not only will you get better and more ideas, but you're going to get something that's more successful because they've bought into it, because they were a part of that solution. No one just likes to be told what to do. They want to, they need the information. The light has to be turned on. And then once it's turned on, they can be a part of making things better, making the business more profitable, and work on those projects so that ultimately when the numbers turn around and the business turns around, they drove that success.
I have had less successful bosses who think that communications means making absolutely certain that what I want you to do. You've talked about is much more collaborative and it leads to ongoing success. I think one of the challenges here might be that you do these transformations, they transform, and maybe you have to find a new one.
Some of my transitions have been to that end. I sign up for situations where a part of the remit is to maybe professionalize the business, turn the business around so that we say up and to the right, so that ultimately it's ready to be sold. And that's the end game. And it depends who the buyer is, right, of the company. So in a way, this is what I enjoy doing. And I could be setting myself up that on the other side of the sale, although it was successful, I'm transitioned out of the company, or I have to find, I say, my next gig, as they will. So I think the fact that I have seen a variety of companies has shown that I am adaptable. And I think that in today's environment, you need to be adaptable. Do you have a skill set that is unique and that you can bring into a company to add value? And that may mean you can stay at a company for 15 years as long as you are continuing to learn and grow. But having worked for portfolio companies that were owned by PE firms, or even companies that were founder owned, and then ultimately the owner wanted to sell, it's almost like the nature of the beast, as you say. But as long as I'm keeping my skill set up, if I'm adaptable and I've shown that I've been able to be successful in a variety of industries and environments, I think that's what matters.
And you have a large network across a variety of industries that can probably help and know what you've accomplished. I think the world has kind of changed. I do remember my daughter set up a tango school, and I remember she asked for advice, and I said, "What's your exit strategy?" And she said, "Why would I ever want to exit?" Right? So kind of a different
That's great.
different mindset. Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for making the time, and we look forward to talking again.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dan.